The wind outside roared like a beast, carrying sheets of snow that swallowed everything in sight. I was just settling into my favorite chair, savoring the warmth of the fire, when I heard it. Faint scratches at the door. At first I ignored it, thinking it was just the wind playing tricks, but then came a sound that froze me in place. A desperate whine. I opened the door to find a trembling German shepherd, his fur soaked in snow, barely clinging to life. What happened next would haunt me forever. Winter in the mountains isn't just cold. It's brutal. That night storm wasn't just any snowstorm. It was the kind that makes you grateful for solid walls and a strong fire. My cabin, tucked deep into the woods, was my haven. Quiet, isolated, peaceful. I'd spent the evening like I always did during storms, reading slowly, letting the crackling quiet erase the chill from my bones. The wind howled like it was a leaf, rattling the shutters and pressing against the glass. I was halfway through a book when I heard it again, soft, repetitive scratching. I paused. Out here, sounds happen. Branches creak, snow slides, animals move through the night, but this wasn't that. This was intentional. And then it came again. Scratch and another whine. I set the book down. My heart picked up pace. Out here, instincts matter, and something about that sound didn't sit right. I crept toward the door, my bare feet cold against the wooden floor. The scratching stopped as I got close, replaced by a soft, pitiful whimper. I grabbed my flashlight, unlocked the deadbolt, and cracked the door open. The wind hit like a slap. Snow blasted in. I squinted into the dark. That's when I saw him. A German shepherd, maybe 7 or 8 years old. His coat was stiff with frost, his ribs showing through his matted fur. He was trembling, barely able to stand. His eyes met mine, and they were filled with something I won't forget. Fear, pain, and a strange kind of hope. Jesus Christ, I whispered. I dropped the flashlight and knelt down. The dog tried to step forward, but his legs gave out. Without thinking, I scooped him into my arms. He was ice cold, his fur wet and rough against my chest. Hang on, buddy. I kicked the door shut behind us, rushed to the fire, and laid him on the thick rug. My hands shook as I grabbed a blanket and wrapped him up. He didn't move. Shallow breaths, barely there. For a second, I thought I was too late. Come on, stay with me, I said. My voice cracked. I ran to the kitchen, filled a bowl with warm water, grabbed an old towel, and hurried back. Kneeling beside him, I gently rubbed his fur, trying to melt the ice and bring warmth back to his body. A twitch. His ears flicked. Hope. Where did you come from? I whispered. There were no tags, no collar, just frostbite and ribs and eyes that had seen too much. The fire kept crackling, and slowly the trembling lessened. I warmed up some chicken broth and brought it to him. He sniffed it weakly. After a moment, he started to lap at the liquid. My chest tightened. Good boy, I whispered. That simple act, eating, was a sign. He was still fighting. He tried to stand, collapsed again. I helped him settle back down. You're safe now. The hours passed. He stayed by the fire, breathing slow and steady, eyes half open, watching me. I couldn't stop wondering. Where had he come from? How far had he traveled in that storm? And why? Why my door? By dawn, the storm had eased. Pale light filtered through the curtains. The shepherd was sleeping, his head resting on a folded blanket. Peaceful, relaxed in a way that told me he hadn't felt safe in a long time. I made coffee, sat in my chair, and just watched him. There was something about this dog, a presence, like he came into my life with a purpose I didn't yet understand. Then, a sound, another scratch. I froze. My eyes snapped to the door. No, I wasn't imagining it. Scratch, whine. I stood slowly. My pulse thumped in my ears as I opened the door, cautious. And there it was, another German shepherd, smaller, younger, also soaked and shaking. Its eyes, same as the first, that pleading, hollow look. You've got to be kidding me. Where did you come from? This wasn't coincidence. 2 dogs, both half dead, showing up back to back in the same storm. I looked out into the woods. Nothing but white. Stillness, trees heavy with snow. Then the young dog whimpered. All right, come in. I stepped aside. It moved slowly, paws unsteady, and walked straight toward the older shepherd. He perked up, sniffed the air, and then his tail wagged, weakly but enough to break my heart. You know each other? The younger dog curled beside him, resting his head on his side. The older nuzzled it gently. They weren't strays. They were family. I fed the younger one broth, wrapped another blanket around them both, and sat with them in silence. My heart full and broken all at once. Where had they come from? What had they escaped? Later that morning, once they were both sleeping, I stepped outside. The snow was knee-deep and the wind was still sharp, but I needed to see. I followed the tracks, 2 sets of paw prints, faint, partially buried in the snow, but there was a third set, larger, a human. My breath caught. Someone had been with them. Someone had walked them and left them behind. Why? The trail led toward the forest, and despite every warning in my head telling me to stay close to the warmth, I followed. The prints zigzagged, circled, stopped, and picked up again. It was erratic, confused. After 20 minutes, I reached a small clearing. The prints ended. The snow here was disturbed, like someone had fallen or struggled. I scanned the area and saw something sticking out of the snow. I brushed it off and picked it up. A leash, frayed, chewed through. I turned back toward the trees when suddenly I heard it. A bark. I spun around. It was the older German shepherd, standing just inside the clearing, his eyes locked on me. "You followed me?" He barked again, turning his head toward the deeper woods. "What is it, boy?" He barked again, louder, urgent. He wanted me to follow, and I did. He led me through dense trees, snow falling silently around us. We reached an old shed, run down. The roof sagged under snow, windows blacked out. He stood at the door, waiting. I pushed it open. The air hit me first, stale, rotting, and something else, metallic. Inside were cages, 4 of them, empty but not clean. Matted fur, broken bowls, chewed up blankets, claw marks on the walls. I knelt down. My hands trembled as I touched the bent bars. This wasn't a shed. It was a prison, and they had escaped. In the corner, I spotted a notebook, water damaged, but intact. Inside were pages of handwritten notes, dates, descriptions, notes on obedience, and a line I'll never forget. Subject 12, male German shepherd, strong, obedient, potential resale, high. Resale. My hands clenched around the notebook. My stomach turned. They weren't just abandoned, they were trafficked. That's when the dog barked, sharp loud. I turned. A shadow moved between the trees. A man, watching. He stood just beyond the clearing, half hidden beneath the cover of snow-dusted trees. I couldn't see his face at first, just the silhouette of a man standing still, watching. The German shepherd stepped in front of me, a shield, protective, alert. His ears were up, body tense. He barked, deep, guttural, warning. I raised my voice. "Who's there?" No response. Just the sound of footsteps crunching slowly through the snow. The figure stepped forward, closer, each step deliberate. My heart hammered. I braced myself, gripping the notebook like a shield, as if that could do anything. The man came into view. Late 40s, maybe early 50s, weathered skin, deep lines. He looked like someone who'd lived outside the system for a long time and liked it that way. He wore a heavy coat, hood pulled back, his eyes cold, calculating. "That doesn't belong to you," he said, nodding toward the notebook in my hand. I didn't answer, just stared him down. He tried again, his voice firmer. "I'm not going to say it twice. Leave the book and walk away." I glanced at the dog, who hadn't moved, still standing between us, still growling low. "Steady. You don't want to do this," I said, keeping my voice calm. The man smirked. His eyes flicked from me to the dog and back. "You think that mutt's gonna stop me?" I didn't answer, but the shepherd did. He lunged forward, teeth bared, a snarl tearing from his throat. The man stumbled back, clearly not expecting it. He reached into his coat, and for a moment, I thought he was going for a weapon, but instead he stopped, stared at the shepherd. His face changed, a flicker of recognition, then regret, then fear. "So it's you," he muttered. He looked back at me. That dog should have been gone by now. He was never supposed to make it out. I stepped forward. "You did this to him?" He didn't answer. You kept them in cages, starved them, hurt them. Still silence. I held up the notebook. This has everything. Names, descriptions. Your notes. I'm taking it to the police. His eyes narrowed. That was a mistake. He stepped toward me. But the dog stepped again between us, growling louder now, barking like a siren. The man hesitated, then turned, ran back into the woods, disappearing through the trees. The shepherd started after him, but stopped at the edge of the clearing. He barked once more, then turned to me, eyes burning with urgency. I knelt down beside him. "Good boy," I whispered. "You did good." He licked my hand, then rested his head against me. We stayed like that a moment, the snow falling gently around us, the shed behind us, the truth still echoing in my head. Back at the cabin, I made the call. Sheriff's Department. I told them everything. They arrived hours later, took my statement, took the notebook. I showed them the shed. They didn't say much, but I could tell. The evidence, it was enough. As they left, one of the deputies turned to me. "You saved them," he said. "You really did." I shook my head. They saved themselves. I just opened the door. That night, the storm returned, not with snow, but with thoughts, questions. Who else was out there? How many more dogs? Was that man working alone? I didn't know, but I knew this. Those two German shepherds weren't just survivors. They were warriors. The younger one, still quiet, still thin, had begun to follow me around the cabin. Still wary, but slowly trusting. I named her Scout. The older one. I called him Hero. Because he was. He guarded. He guided. He stood between me and something dangerous and didn't hesitate. Hero and Scout slept by the fire that night. Their breathing was calm, their bodies warm, and for the first time in what must have been months, they were safe. But even as the flames crackled and the snow piled against the windows again, I couldn't shake one feeling. This wasn't over. 2 days later, I got a call from the sheriff. They found more, another location, another shed, more cages, more signs of abuse. It was bigger than just one man. It was part of something darker. They didn't give me details. Ongoing investigation. But they thanked me again. And they asked me if I'd testify, if it came to that. I said yes. How could I not? Hero stood by me when it mattered most. The least I could do was stand up for him now. Weeks passed. The snow melted. The cabin, once isolated and quiet, became something else. A sanctuary, a home, not just for me anymore, but for two dogs who had become part of me. Scout gained weight, learned to trust again. Hero watched over us both. Fierce, gentle, always close. I took them hiking when the trails cleared. Watched them run like they were finally free. And every night they curled up by the fire, the same spot they first collapsed in when they arrived. But even as life returned to normal, a part of me stayed changed, because now I noticed things. A chained dog in a neighbor's yard made my stomach turn. A flyer about a missing pet made my chest tighten. I started volunteering with a rescue group, donating time, money, anything I could. And slowly, the story spread. People in town started asking about the dogs, their story, what happened. And I told them, not to be dramatic, not for attention, but because the truth matters. Because what happened in those woods shouldn't happen anywhere. Because pain left in the dark grows, but pain brought into the light, that's how change starts. Spring came slowly to the mountains. The snow softened. The creek began to run again, and the forest, once still and silent, stirred with life. The world looked different, but I think the biggest changes happened inside the cabin. Scout had grown stronger, her coat thick and healthy, her eyes brighter, more curious. She no longer flinched at sudden sounds, no longer shrank away when I raised my voice to call her name. She had become playful. She'd nudge open the back door with her nose, dash out into the yard, and then look back, waiting for me to chase her. I always did. Hero, on the other hand, had taken on a new role. Protector, teacher, guardian. He was patient with Scout, always alert, always watching the tree line when we hiked the trails. And at night, when I'd sit on the porch with a cup of tea, he'd rest his head on my knee like he'd done it his whole life. Sometimes I talked to him, not expecting a response, of course, but the way he looked at me, the way he listened, it was like he understood every word. I never used to believe in fate, but after that winter, after that storm, I wasn't so sure anymore. I think they were meant to find me. Or maybe I was meant to be found by them. One evening, a letter arrived from the sheriff's department. Inside was a short message. They'd made an arrest. The man from the woods, his name was Travis Dill. He had priors, but nothing like this. Turns out he was part of a larger ring, selling dogs, breeding them, using them for things I won't repeat here. The evidence from the notebook, combined with what they found in the other sheds, it was enough. He'd be going to trial. The letter also mentioned something else. They'd recovered 4 more dogs, malnourished, scarred, but alive. They were placed with foster families, given medical care, new homes. I read the letter 3 times, each time slower than the last. Then I folded it up and tucked it into the drawer beside my chair. Hero was lying by the fire. Scout was chewing on one of her new toys. They were safe, and that meant more than any letter ever could. I thought that would be the end of it, but something kept pulling at me. The feeling that their story wasn't just mine to keep. So I started writing. At first, just notes, then full pages, then chapters, and eventually, this story. Because stories like this matter. Because pain can be transformed into healing when it's shared. Because there are still people out there who don't know, who think cruelty only happens in other places, other neighborhoods, other lives, but it doesn't. Sometimes it happens in a quiet shed, a mile from your cabin. Sometimes it comes scratching at your door, half frozen and desperate for a second chance. And sometimes it changes your life. People started reaching out. After I posted their story online, after I spoke at a town hall, my inbox filled up. Messages from people who had been through similar things, people who rescued animals, people who had been rescued themselves, people who said thank you. And it made me realize something. This wasn't just about Hero and Scout anymore. It was about all of them, all the animals abandoned, Abby's forgotten, and all the people who decided not to look away. I partnered with a local rescue, helped them build a winter shelter program, donated part of my land for emergency drop-offs, set up cameras, gates, supplies, and every dog that came through those doors, they got a blanket, a fire, a warm meal, and a name. Hero became the face of the rescue. People loved him, asked for updates, sent treats and letters addressed to him directly. I always read them out loud. He never wrote back, but he listened. Always. That summer we held a small gathering on the land. Volunteers, foster families, neighbors. Claudine came. Remember her? The woman who first called 911, thinking I was the one up to something? She brought cookies and tears. She knelt in front of Hero, gently stroking his fur, whispering an apology that didn't need to be said. He wagged his tail, licked her hand, forgave her instantly. Dogs are like that. Later that night, as the sun dipped below the ridge, I sat beside Hero one last time on the porch. He was older now, slower, grayer around the eyes, but still whole, still mine, still watching the woods with that same quiet fire. You saved me, I told him. He didn't move, just laid his head against my leg, and I thought about how strange and beautiful life can be, how a storm, a scratch at the door, a single choice to open it, can become the beginning of something you never expected, something you needed, something sacred. So if you're still listening, if this story found you at the right time, maybe there's a door you need to open, a voice you need to trust, a second chance you need to give or ask for. Because the truth is, loyalty doesn't need words. Love doesn't always arrive when it's convenient. And sometimes your hero comes not with a cape, but with scars and silent eyes and snow in his fur. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, share it. Not for me, for the ones who can't tell their own story, and for the ones waiting right now in the cold, for someone like you to open the door.